Hi guys, welcome back to Tech Talks with Rachel. I'm here at Black is Tech and I'm joined by a special guest because we're both software test engineers at heart. Please could we get your full name and your current job title?
Yes, so I am Angie Jones and I'm the Global Vice President of Developer Relations at TBD, which is a business unit of Block.
How does a software test engineer get there?
It's really not that hard actually, because in software testing we are trained to look at the big picture view, right? And we look beyond just the technology itself. We look at the users and how they're going to use the product, and we advocate for those scenarios, and we make sure like we kind of keep everyone on track as software testers. And so it wasn't really that much of a leap, because once I started just excelling at those traits that are inherent with software testing, I started getting pulled into other directions within the companies that I worked in, and then eventually just wanted to share my knowledge even externally with other software testers across the globe. And so I started doing a lot of public speaking and things of that nature, and sharing like the types of tools I was using and techniques and tricks for doing so. And eventually that translated into other areas in tech as well.
I love that. So you sound like you were one of those people who were doing things that were not in your job spec.
Probably. That sounds like me. Yeah, so I take a job spec and see what's expected of me, but sometimes everybody doesn't know what exactly they want. And so you get on the job and you do what's needed, but you also look around for how to make things better, right? And that might be something that's not a bullet point on your job spec, but that's also how you start standing out from the crowd.
So how did you initially get into tech?
So I went to college unsure of what I wanted to do, and I hadn't done anything with computers, so I didn't even know anything about that. But my father recognized that computers were becoming like this emergent space, and so he recommended that I at least learn how to use one. And me not knowing anything at all, I saw a course on the syllabus that had the word computer in it, and I enrolled. That happened to be a C++ programming course. So I kind of like just jumped in head first. I didn't know A from Z, but I really enjoyed it. I had a good teacher, a nice class of students that were kind of in the same boat as I was, so we learned together. And so, yeah, that's how I got into the field.
So currently at the moment, I Googled it recently. I don't know if it's because the internet's not been updated, but it's 3% at the moment in terms of black women in tech. How do you feel?
That's better. That might be an update. It used to be like less than 2. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
So how do you feel about that?
I'm living proof that we not only belong in this space, but we can excel in this space. And I don't think I'm an anomaly at all. I think a lot of what I've learned in my career is not to let this environment overtake me, because it could be overwhelming. Like, you're around a whole bunch of people that don't look like you, right? If it's only 2% of us in the entire field, it's not very likely you're going to work with somebody like you on a team. And I remember it was like 12 years in my career before I ever coded with another black woman before, which is like insane. But if you take a step back and even think about what that does to someone's mental psyche, like, it's easy for me to be like, oh, don't worry about it, but you constantly have this feeling that you don't belong here and that you're the oddball, and like, if anything is hard, you kind of attribute it to that fact, and that's not necessarily the case. So I had to do a lot of self-work to recognize that I do belong here, and just because I may be one of the few people here doesn't mean that my kind does not belong here, And so I take it to heart. That's why I do a lot of speaking. I need people to see me. I need to normalize being a black woman in these spaces, in excelling, not just being here, you know?
I love that. And I think that's why Tech Talks with Rachel exists. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing in the UK scene as well. So what are the challenges that you've overcome over the years as a software test engineer transitioning to a different discipline within tech?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we know to be true no matter where you are in tech is that you have to keep learning, right? And so this role that I've taken now where I do developer relations is for a financial product. I'm so far away from like the software testing that I started with, but this was a challenge for myself. I felt like I knew a lot about software testing. I was teaching it everywhere. I could pretty much do it in my sleep. And I was ready for a new challenge and something different. And so after being in the industry for like at that point, I don't know, it might have been like, I don't know how long, but it was like almost close to 20 years that I've been in the industry. So to try something new was a bit daring, a bit scary.
You don't look like you've been in the industry for 20 years.
But also it was, you know, my chance again to level up, to expand myself outside of my comfort zone, right? And I'm also an inventor. So I have 27 patents, and that goes back to Black Girl Magic if we really think about it, because all of those came from being at a table surrounded by people that didn't look like me, didn't have the upbringing, the background, or think the way that I think. And so bringing my perspective in life experiences to these problems helps me solve them from a unique and innovative viewpoint, right? So anyway, I like to be on the cutting edge of tech. And so the area that I'm working in now is working with like open standards and technology that's like brand new and empowering things like mobile driver's license. And so this technology is only available and very recently within the last year or two within about 17 states in the US out of 50. So it's really new, and I just love being on the cutting edge of technology and being able to influence it that way.
I love that. So what kind of characteristics would you say you have that differentiate you from the average QA, software test engineer, or even the average developer, or you know, the average person out there who's working in their discipline? Because you've been able to not only succeed in your discipline, but to scale up your career beyond your 9 to 5, and then also become a voice of influence.
I think I'm an advocate at heart, right? I advocate for my community, for users of products, for anything like that. And that takes you very far because, one, you're going to make sure you understand the product inside and out so that you can help these people be successful. But then, two, you're going to fight inside on their behalf. You say, no, the customers, they need to be able to do this. The software is blocking them or preventing them from doing that. We have to solve this. And I've always been a champion for people, right? And I think that translated very nicely. So you talk about how did you go from testing to developer advocate? I'm advocating for customers and users already as a tester. As a developer advocate, now those users are developers, and I happen to understand tech, right? And so it was not that hard of a transition to then start advocating for another community of users. And I think that skill has taken me very far. People love someone who will champion for them, even internally. People want to know. They come to me, Angie, what do the users think? You know, and that becomes a very valuable trait that you have.
So what is your day to day? You wake up in the morning. What does, I guess, Monday to Friday look like for you, 9 to 5?
Oh, okay. So that varies every day, which is really fun in this role. So, for example, right now I'm at a conference. So that's a norm for me. I travel lots of conferences all over the world. So it could be a travel day. It could be a day that I'm talking on stage. It could be a day that I'm meeting and networking with people. I also lead teams. And so that's something that's consistent on a day-to-day that I'm checking in with them. I'm blocking them. I'm making sure they have what they need to be successful.
what would you advise for the 18-year-olds who are considering of getting into tech? And what would you also, on the flip side, advise people like me in their late 20s who are maybe not in tech and who want to transition into tech?
Yeah, so the advice is going to be the same for both. There's so many resources now that weren't available when I was going into that area, right? And it's all readily available online on YouTube, on blog posts, everywhere. You can find content. So I would, one, suggest that you start looking into it because tech is huge. Like there's so many things that you can do in tech. And that's the first question I ask people who say, hey, I want to transition into tech or I want to go into tech. It's like, oh, great, what area? And they're like, I don't know. You tell me. I don't know what you like, you know? And so just start exploring like different things to see what might interest you. Do you like security? Do you like performance? Do you like software testing? Do you want to develop things? Do you maybe want to use marketing skills in the tech arena? Product, like there's so many different lanes that you can take. So spend a little time with yourself exploring what's out there and figuring out like where your skills would be best utilized. And then once you figure that out, figure out how you're going to get there, right? So whether that be you go to university or you do a boot camp or you self-teach. Some people are really good at that. I'm not. I need a teacher. I need to ask questions. But some people are great and they're really sharp and I can learn it myself. If that's you, that's great. So figure out like what's the best path for you to get there. And then everybody needs to network. Like, and that sounds cliche, but it's so important because the industry right now, the job market is wild. I mean, there's a lot of people that are out of work who have experience. And as someone who's new coming in without experience, these are the same people you're competing against. So you need to lean very heavily on your network. The people that have followed that advice, I see them. They get jobs like this. Like they might get laid off on one job on a Friday. By Monday, they're starting another one because they're leaning on that network of people. And this can't be something you build once you need it. You need it now. Just start building now. And it doesn't have to be superficial at all. Make connections and genuine relationships with people.
I'm building my network because I want to see if I can move to the US someday. So I'm going to be like, Angie, can you get me a job, please? So, two more questions. What new emerging technologies or new trends should we be aware of in the next 5 to 10 years that we should position ourselves to succeed in?
Yeah, so right now I'm focused on digital identity. So things like mobile driver's license. Have you heard of that before? So I did a talk here at this conference specifically on that technology because it's fascinating to me what it unlocks. Like there's a lot that sometimes we have to prove our identity online, and that's really hard to do because you have this physical ID and you're trying to take a picture, there's a glare, you're trying to upload it, say it's blurry. Like it's just a mess, right? And so mobile driver's license and technology like verifiable credentials and things like that unlocks a lot that you can do online. So that's one that you definitely should be on the lookout for.
I think that would also be amazing for passports because the last thing, honestly, the couple of days ago when I was flying out, I was like, where's my passport? I had to like locate it. Imagine if I couldn't find it. That means I couldn't fly.
Yeah.
But I've got a valid passport. But imagine if it was on my phone or digitally accessible, then you can always fly no matter what and you'll never lose your passport or your driving license. So I think it should be like both of them, to be honest.
Yeah, you keep them both. Yeah, you keep them both. And Aruba has actually just started this year where they have the ability to enter the country with these credentials that you don't even need your physical passport with you. So I'm telling you, it's catching on. We're starting to see it in all areas, in finance, in education, in travel, in the medical sector, like everywhere. So I'm excited.
I'm excited too. So our final question is always, what is your favorite career advice that you've ever received, and what would you like to pass on to the viewers?
Yeah. I'm going to say it's my own advice. that I have to tell myself sometimes, you know, it's like your differences are your superpowers. Lean into those differences. Like we use our differences almost as a crutch, and sometimes we count ourselves out, we get in our own heads. But when I know that my difference is my superpower, like my background is why I was able to come up with those patent I did. You know what I mean? Like I lean into that very heavily, to the point that your doubt of me does not affect me. I know who I am, you know what I mean? And so I think that's really good advice, especially for underrepresented people in tech.
Well, you heard it here, guys. Lean into that and be different in your sphere and be bold in your difference. Thank you so much, Angie, for joining me. Thanks, guys, for being here and listening. I hope you guys got some good nuggets. Stay tuned for a few more interviews here at Black is Tech. I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.